Anime has existed for a very long time, and it spent most of that time iterating upon itself and finding new and interesting ways to communicate things to the audience, while at the same time working to be both stylistically pleasing as well as cost effective. In anime, that's sort of a golden triangle: visual communication, style, and cost effectiveness. Nearly every animation quirk developed in Japanese animation is made to appeal to at least two of these 3 points of the triangle. Because of this, there have been some very interesting animation techniques present in anime that you don't really ever see anywhere else in the medium of animation. A lot of these are fairly simple, while others are so ubiquitous that they get used, referenced, and iterated over and over until they become as much a part of the medium as big eyes and pointy chins. Hello and welcome to Anime Editorial. I'm your host Nino, and today we'll be going over 3 of these techniques, their origins, and showing you what shows they may have been featured in. Utapon cubes, named after the innovator of the technique, Yutaka Nakamura, is a prime example of how laziness can turn into art. This effect is employed during high-octane action scenes when there's multiple pieces of flying debris after a large structure or landscape gets destroyed. When the damage happens, instead of the debris exploding into multiple pieces with their own individual shapes and sizes, they explode into cubes. This in turn makes them easier to animate since you don't have to worry about drawing multiple different shapes for one cut. It's a time-saving technique, but it ends up looking very interesting in practice.
Let's see ya grit those teeth!
Masami Obari's contributions to anime are more beloved for their iconography and style than they are for their technical achievements. Don't misunderstand me, the guy was a technical dynamo in his own right, go read up about him. Obari has become such a legend in the anime industry that he has not one, but 2 animation quirks named after him: the Obari Pose and the Obari Punch. And regardless of whether or not you've ever seen a show he was involved in, you've most likely seen one of these 2 techniques before. Today I'll be focusing on the Obari Punch. The funniest thing about this cut is that it's so iconic and it's become so infused in the DNA of anime that if I showed it to you, it wouldn't look like anything more than just a punch thrown at the camera. However, this is a very deconstructible technique, and we can look through it step by step to see what makes it so memorable. Start the character off neutral, have them pull their arm back, and then have them tilt their head and puff out their chest, and finally, let a punch fly towards the camera that lingers on just a little bit on the fist covering the screen. You'd be hard pressed to find a single action focused anime that didn't involve this animation cut, or at least a variation of it in any way.
Simone, are you alright?
Be careful, you've got to pace yourself!
Yeah, I'll take a quick break. You handle these.
Huh?
Ichiro Itano, alongside the likes of Yoshinori Kaneda and Masami Obari, is one of the most highly beloved legends of the mecha genre and Japanese animation as a whole. However, one of Itano's biggest contributions to the medium would become a bread and butter animation cut for action-focused anime for generations. The Itano circus, also known as the Macross Missile Massacre, is pretty much any scene that constitutes a character, plane, ship, or mech dodging an array of stylishly animated projectiles. The story behind the cut is actually quite legendary in and of itself. One day, Itano was messing around with some fireworks and decided to attach some of them to his motorcycle. While he was riding it, he lit the fireworks and the image they made in the night sky before exploding became etched in his brain, forming the basis for the Itano circus as we know it today. Despite being originated with missiles, an important note is that the circus doesn't really have to use missiles as the projectiles. Anything that you can get more than one of will work. Lasers, spirit wolves, swords. There's even a subsidiary of this technique which can easily be described as the bullet circus. The interesting thing about the Itano circus is that it's gone through its own subtle innovations over the years to make it more visually appealing. If you look at this early version of the cut, the missiles are really fluidly animated but extremely frantic and hard to follow. They all zip around at light speed and only start to form a cohesive trail when they're about to hit their mark. In more modern anime, the visual appeal of the circus is bolstered by two distinct changes to their older counterparts. Some newer versions of the Itano circus make the trails move in distinct 90-degree angles to be easily traced by the audience's eye, and also to make them easier to draw. Another very distinct part of the Itano circus is that the actor being chased by the projectiles always makes their way towards the corners of the screen, usually in an anti-clockwise pattern. A good Itano circus leads the eye all around the screen. One example is this cut from Fate Stay Night in Limited Blade Works. Caster is being chased all across the screen, but you can clearly see the direction in which the lasers are moving. Likewise in this cut from Naruto, which actually utilizes a really slick downward flow, even though you can see him zipping all across the screen. Let's take a look at both these scenes again. The cut from Fate Stay Night has a very bright coloring on the lasers, so even though Caster is moving very fast and sort of blends in with the background, you always know where she is on screen because the lasers chasing her are colored bright red in contrast to the rest of the screen. A similar effect is used in the Naruto cut. However, instead of the tentacles of the Jubi being brightly colored, Naruto himself has the bright coloring, so you can always make out where he is on screen. In general, the Itano circus is less of a quirk and more of a cinematic shorthand for narrowly escaping danger, and as I've shown here, it can take form in multiple different variations. I've only just scratched the very top of the surface when it comes to these sort of animation cuts, and I encourage you to tell me in the comments the sort of animation quirks you've noticed in anime. Even if you don't really have formal names for them, go ahead and post them in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel to see more content like this in the future, and sayonara minasan, thanks for watching.
誰にも覗かせない俺様のその胸の中身なぜか走るこの痛みは何ありふれたちょっとしたひがみ誰にも覗かせない俺様のその胸の中身なぜか走るこの痛みは何ありふれたちょっとしたひがみ One, two, one, two, check, one, two, three マイクじゃなくて from A to Z 今日はカーカーキン金曜日だチェッキーだバイトだ